Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science or truth, a study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Sattology builds your identity and mythology destroys your identity. One of the important things is in the US, yesterday I asked a very funny question. It is a funny question. I asked on my Facebook, I said, will a Native American who is a non-Christian ever become the president of the United States? And I got few responses, obviously, few responses I'm going to get for that question because my majority of my followers are from USA. So people laughed at that question. So it just, that is an answer also. I took it up. That's an answer. So, but one of the tribals is being nominated to be the president of India, and she's a woman. Well, in India, the concept is, I mean, in USA, when you call it colored, India, the concept is colorless, the colorless or colored. But anyway, so that's how you celebrate the native cultures, heritage. We have had Native Heritage Month, we had the Hindu Heritage Month, there's a Jewish Heritage Month, there is a Vietnamese Heritage Month. There are 20 different types of heritage months in the US. And I would also like to have the White Heritage Month. And that's a new concept. The reason is then we want to show when they came here. So, so I have a very special guest who will talk about heritage. So let us welcome Surya Sarathi Roy. Welcome. Namaste. Can you hear me?
Namaste. Yes, Namaste.
So when we talk about heritage, what do you understand by heritage, and what we understand? Because English is a funny language. Everything has a different meaning depending on the place it is spoken.
So, yes, yes. So, to to summarize, heritage comes from history, and it comes from the past. Things of the past which we should store, preserve for our learnings, for our teachings to our future generations, to show them what our culture is, what our architectural heritages are, the history is, and something which has got a wider concept of keeping intact your originality. The very concept of heritage comes with a tagline of heritage conservation, which we all know globally. And whenever we talk of heritage, it comes with we know that heritage conservation we are looking at. So obviously, it implies that in whichever country you are, wherever you are on part of this earth, if you are a heritage specialist, if you are interested in heritage, obviously you would like to look at the historical buildings, historical forts, or any historical place, or any historical landscape, which has some, history associated with it, which has some architectural importance associated with it, and it has some, value, value which can create and garner revenue for that site when opened up to the public. So it is extremely important that heritage, where in any country for that matter, is preserved in the most, in the most authentic way, and in the manner in which it should be preserved. And obviously, that implies training, clear demarcation of responsibilities, funding from the government, and obviously awareness. That is the most important thing, the awareness. That's how heritage is looked at.
Now, throughout the world, the word heritage has been associated with the European version of the history to keeping the status quo on the European version of the history. I'll give you an example of Brazil and Mexico. Their entire history, post or pre Spanish invasion or Portuguese invasion, is totally obliterated. Like if you go to Brazilian museums, their founders are all Portuguese kings and queens. That's the
Yeah,
founder of the Brazil country as a country.
correct.
And And same in Mexico. It's all about Spanish, Cortez and Cortez family and Junipero Serra, if you look at the Baja California. And so it's a heritage is completely Europeanized. In the case of India, probably India is the only country where pre-British heritage is considered more important. And that Indians must congratulate themselves that it is so. But it's not happened in any other country owned by or operated by the British. Example is Australia, a British
Yeah,
colony. Till date is a
yeah,
British colony. Canada
yes,
is a British colony.
yeah,
America has declared independence in 1776, but it is still a British colony. Their
yeah,
language is the main language here. So,
correct.
how do you say, like the heritage, India has retained their heritage to some extent. So, what is your view on this entire observation, the Europeanism which is going on everywhere?
Right. So this is a very important question, and in order to understand the relevance of it, that why it is there in India in this form, is primarily because of the enormous struggle, the fights that our ancestors had done across India. Starting from the Ahom dynasty in the east to the the Mewar, the Sisodias in the west, or to the Chalukyas, Cholas, Palas, Senas. All these, I mean, there's so many of them actually, which have struggled, which have fought their wars, and till last, till the last nail in the coffin were the Marathas. The Marathas also fought a big battles, with the British and with the Mughal empires and with some of the other Adil Shahi and Nizam and all that stuff that we know. And all these struggles, which actually contributed to preservance of the original structures, original culture, original art that we see today. And even I mean, that's one point that definitely comes up over here, is what is the role of then ASI, Archaeological Survey of India. So let me tell you, in 1867, around 1867, 1870, when Archaeological Survey of India was formed, with its first director as Alexander Cunningham, the rulings which were given, that was to focus on the Mughal structures. The focus was never on the Hindu structures or the native structures which are there. Of course, many of them have been preserved post-independence, and they have worked. ASI also, from the initial days, has worked. I'm not shying away from that fact. But if you really ask me that why India is so different from the other colonial colonies of the West, or in the Southeast Asia, or even in the US, I would say it is primarily attributed to the enormous struggle of our forefathers. That's the one and only one reason that I can see. The effort that has been put in. That's one part of it. And even when the British took over, the ASI was formed. It was a lot of effort went into the on part of the native historians, starting from Lakhaldas Banerjee to Jadunath Sarkar to R.C. Majumdar, in highlighting the importance with archaeological facts, with literary evidences, in in searching out the sites, putting them in the right place, going around to places, so a lot of effort has gone into this preservation, or the conservation of this heritage structure for India. And it was primarily not the Britishers, but within the ASI, the Indian historians who were working tirelessly, I would say. Some of the descriptions that I read for R.C. Majumdar and Jadunath Sarkar, that the way the efforts they put in to unearth the Maratha history, to unearth the Kalinga history, or the Bengal history, or even the the Mewar or the Rathor's history, or that, for that matter, the entire Rajputana. It's enormous. What kind of efforts, once you read through those texts, you will understand what kind of efforts they have put in. And and the site excavations they did to highlight, to highlight and to create that awareness. That's why I mentioned that awareness is a big thing. And to bring in that awareness, credit goes to all these gentlemen who actually played a huge role in affecting the preservation of the original structures that we have today. It's just not about the Mughal structures, but also about, the Indian structure or a Sanatani structure, the Hindu structures. Let's say a Gwalior fort, or let's say, Jagannath temple for that matter, or any of the temple, Brihadeshwara temple, or even let's go down to west, to the Panhala fort, or to the run of Kutch, go to any place, or the Bhimbatka caves. So, the conservation efforts, or the how why India is like this or it's different from the other colonies, is primarily because of these two factors, if I have to sum up. So one is the enormous struggle that our forefathers did to fight off the Mughals or the Sultanate, Delhi Sultanate, or the post British era, post ASI, when ASI took over. Within ASI, the Indian historians who worked tirelessly to put this right facts, data, figures in place for the preservation of this, these structures. Of course, lot needs to be done. There's a long way to go even today, which we will speak of later on. But honestly speaking, these are the two main factors that are attributed to why India is like that.
Can you move your camera slightly lower? Because only the face is visible. Yeah, better, much better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Slightly more, slightly more. Uh,
Is it
Perfect.
okay?
Much better, much better. So one of the things which comes to the mind, you took the name of Alex Cunningham and the ASI philosophy. Now ASI, now temples are dreading to give their temples to ASI because the worship is stopped after that. And it is Alex Cunningham philosophy to deny the natives of India, Bharat, to
That is
continue
why I
their traditions.
mentioned, this is exactly the reason why I mentioned the focus was completely on the Mughal structures, and he had a clear policy and strategy to, destroy a lot of evidences, which I will speak of little later.
Yeah. One of the evidences was the Lahore Peshawar railway line. So people do not know the most of the stones of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro were used in putting the railway line on top of it.
Yeah.
So when people
Yes.
travel by trains, most of the tracks, the pillars are used from the excavation at Mohenjo-daro and Harappan
Exactly.
civilization. And also there is
Exactly.
a very stark thing. Indus Valley civilization is considered the oldest, but it is not true. I mean, that is from the ASI point of view. And most of the carbon dating, we all know, is not accurate. And many, there's so many layers and layers. You do not know which was the actual layer on the top. We know that Sindh was a very developed state during the time of Mahabharata, very developed. So it's not the Harappan civilization you can disconnect from Mahabharata era, because Mahabharata happened in the same time, 7,500 years BC to 5,000 BC, between the two eras, or 3102 BC. All three dates are there, but
Correct.
the
Correct.
most probable goes to even further older, 7,500 years back. So,
Absolutely.
what do you have to say on that? What are the examples like that, similar to that?
See, first of all, let me tell you what Alexander Cunningham did, and and which is documented today and documented available. So when Alexander Cunningham took over ASI, he had a clear directive from his masters that your focus should be on the Mughal structures and destroy the evidences, literary, archaeological, oceanographic, geographical, anything that you come across to prove a point on any of these structures, and destroy them to the core, so that even in future, if the Hindus try to arise, they find it difficult to prove a point for them. So it's like a long-term conspiracy that actually happened. And these things are actually documented by A. Carlyle, A. Carlyle, I repeat the name, his assistant who worked with him in Taj Mahal. So that's another story. I don't want to get into the details of Taj Mahal and now what happened, etc. It's a long story, but probably when you ask me, of references of similar cases, I think Taj Mahal is a classic example which happened. Today there was a when you read Carlyle's notes, when you go through this Carlyle's notes, you will be amazed to find that there was a rock basalt pillar with Sanskrit or I think Brahmi scriptures on it mentioned, or Sanskrit scriptures, uh, you know, uh, wordings mentioned on it to identify that these entire complex, the Taj Mahal complex, belong to the Rajputs, and that was moved to the Lucknow State Museum in around 1870 72. And I don't know. I mean, I'm still trying to hunt for these data, and the where these structures have gone, nobody knows. So this is one classic example that I can cite in terms of the recent turbulences around all our historical structures which is happening and being spoken of in India. The other part of it is, which is which cannot be ruled out, the tremendous efforts that the Marxist historians have put in place to whitewash our history. And what I presume, I personally feel that lot many of these confusions, lot many of this conspiracy is actually linked up to what started from 1870 72, and it's actually continuing till date. It has not stopped, and that is why you see ASI putting up a brilliant show in preserving the Mughal architectures, be it the Humayun tomb in Delhi or the Maqbara of Aurangzeb in Aurangabad. But you see, Maharani Tarabai's Samadhi, nothing is there. Peshwa Bajirao Balal Bhat, Rawar near Narmada, on the banks of Narmada, nothing is there. Such a great man. Maharana Raj Singh, who actually sacrificed 40,000 of his Rajput soldiers for the preservation of Nathwara or Srinathji's, idol in Nathwara in 1672. No, no, nothing. It is lying in absolute shambles. Similarly, there are more such references I can bring in. There are thousands of them actually. You look at in the recent times, you look at Netaji Subhash Bose's properties. You go to Puri, there is a the ancestral home of Netaji Subhash Bose is there. Although they have now put, only 2-3 years back, they have done some shaping, but that's primarily after, I would say, change of government has happened. But prior to that, that that was in shambles. Let's look at a little more detailed example, since we always speak of Puri between us. The house of Chandan Khuntia, the house of the famous servitor or Sevayat of Jagannath Temple, who was the guiding factor for Maharani Lakshmi Bai in the 1857 rebellion, and fought along with 3,000 cavalrymen, along with Maharani Lakshmi Bai. You know, he's lost. His house, go to his house, nobody maintains it. The state doesn't maintain it, ASI doesn't maintain it, nobody is aware of it even. We all know because we have been following history. But that's how it is. Again, let's go to the Bhimbetka caves. You come to Jhajjar side, you come to Kurukshetra. I have done so much of research on Kurukshetra. What is that ASI is doing, for that matter, for the preservation of the holy tree under which Sri Krishna delivered Gita at Jyotisar? That place was resurrected by none other than Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya. And what is that they are doing? They are doing nothing. What is that they are doing for preservation of Feva in Kurukshetra? Nothing. They are not doing anything. And even if they do, I mean, they will sometimes say that funds are not there. But when it comes to certain other sites, funds just crop up. I see today in Facebook, ASI Aurangabad Circle is doing a lot of renovation in the Daulatabad fort. But what about the Chunar fort? What's the problem in it? What about Singhar fort? What about Raigad fort? Nothing. It's just lying in jungles. Why? Why is that so? So there is a lot to happen, and I personally feel that the trend which started in 1870 is still continuing, and it will take a lot more time. To close my remarks, I will give the classic case of Sri Jagannath Temple of Puri, what is happening there. You have the Ancient Monuments Act, which was revisited and revised in 2017, and a clear demarcation of 100 meters was to be followed from the periphery of the boundary wall. 100 meters periphery had to be maintained, but nothing has happened. You have 1,000-year-old heritage structures demolished to, I mean, they're biting the dust. You don't know what happened to the manuscripts, scriptures, which was recovered from there. And then you start digging with heavy JCB machineries, which clearly creates crack on the temple, on a 12th century temple. You cannot preserve. You're destroying it with your own hand. I mean, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? Even if you want to develop, you develop following the protocols, following the SOP, which is laid down for doing construction within the periphery of these kind of heritage structures. Look at Konark. ASI is maintaining that site. ASI has maintained, they have done so many things in Konark. But even today, there are pieces getting stolen from many sites in Odisha. The idols get stored, the Vigras get stolen. Even today, we can't stop it. You come to Bengal, uh, I'll give you some brilliant data. The Vishnupur temples, the heart of terracotta temples, one of its kind in India. One of its kind in India. You really do not find any terracotta temples like that apart from Vishnupur in Bengal. Would you believe me? It is lying to be declared as a World Heritage Site in the list, which has to be submitted by the government since 1998. And today, and when I further drill down, there is so much of anomalies which comes out, in terms of preservation of heritage. The scope of work is not defined for each of the bodies. The states have vested interest. They are maintaining the land, but the maintenance is with ASI. It's whole complex scenario which exists today, which needs to be sorted out. So there are thousands of examples, and once we start referring to them, there is no end to it. I was yesterday night. I was only studying a few sites of the early megalithic age and a few sites of Neolithic age, which are in Andhra Pradesh, which are in Kerala. I mean, there's a heavy density. I mean, the map that I was studying, it has got a very heavy density, and the governments are not doing the excavation over there. The ASI with little bit of funds has done it, but I don't know how effective that is. And there are a lot of stuff which is there. Would you believe me? There are burials, burials of stone caves. They are using stones to create room-like structure for burials. And within those structures, you have pots containing ashes, human ashes. Those kind of discovery has already been made. It is not popularized, and ASI is not doing enough. So we have a plethora of, probably once we start looking at things, it's a sea that we have to cover, honestly. Aditya ji, over to you.
See, one of the things which really comes to the mind is that the Marathas replaced Mughal. And so the immediate history of Bharat should be Maratha, not Mughal, because Mughals were defeated by
Absolutely,
them.
absolutely. If you see, if you after defeating Siraj-ud-Daulah at the Battle of Plassey, the Britishers gained entry into East and then into Oudh. Okay, Awadh or Oudh, whatever you say. But then even after that, they had two major battles which they covered: the Third Anglo-Maratha War, and then the Battle of Seringapatnam, where they defeated Tipu to gain entry into the south. And and let me tell you, the Maratha history is so beautiful. If you look at it, let's look at the Maratha invasion of Bengal. If we really look at it, for the 10 years when Raghuji Bhosle from Nagpur was, doing the raids in Bengal on the invitation of the son-in-law of Nawab Ali Bardi Khan, it actually helped two things. One was immediate stoppage to Islam, a complete Islamization of Bengal. That's one thing that happened. Secondly, it pushed the non-Hindu population to the east of Bengal. So that is why at the time of the 47 partition, you have a huge concentration of non-Hindus in east and Hindus in west. That's one thing. The second thing, I mean, and I'll give you one very good, anecdote over here. At the end of the Battle of Plassey, when the victorious British Indian Army was marching into Calcutta, people were throwing flowers on them, showering flowers on the natives, the residents of Calcutta, because they were so happy to get out of the rule of Ali Bardi Khan and Sirajuddaula. They were such a menace. And that is why I say when Maratha invasions, which happened for over a period of 10 years by Raghuji Bhosle and Bhaskar Pandit, it actually deferred the Battle of Plassey by 10 to 15 years' time. But if you look at the flip side of the Battle of Plassey, once the Britishers came in, East India Company came in, it stopped the Islamization, which was actually driven by the Marathas. So that's the beauty of the Maratha history. There are other factors also. British footage in India took a lot of time. I would say was delayed by a period of 30 to 40 years because of the consecutive Anglo-Maratha wars, and the grip the British army was the East India Company's army was not able to capitalize on the Marathas because of these various factors. And Marathas, they were actually acting as the vassals of Mughal, although the Mughal was sitting there as a nominee or as a representative, but actually the Marathas were ruling the country, and they were acting as vassals, and they were across the length and breadth of the country. Yeah.
If you travel the length and breadth of Delhi, Delhi is one classical example, which looks like you mentioned also, the Mughal era, the monuments are kept, and the real history is always hidden. That whether there was a Hanuman temple on which it was built or other temples it was built is all hidden. And now gradually people are discovering that. People are going back to the original documents and checking it out. Now,
Yes.
the impact, the fallout is, when you press a civilization so hard down, it's a recoil effect. It's like a spring. The more you spend it, the recoil is harder. And so to avoid this kind of recoil, it's always better to stick with the truth. And then you can exactly, you can actually see the reality. And this is why I see the major fault right now. With all the suppressing of the actual history, the majority of the Hindus are getting frustrated with the mainstream system, which is being set up during the British era. The
Yes.
British era, people are getting upset, people are questioning everything. And then people are also trying to revive the old era. The books are being written and the authors are coming up, which are questioning everything.
Right.
So isn't it a kind of destabilizing the society much more further? And also stopping the innovation which can come by realizing the aspirations of the majority of the people. What do you have to say on that?
Absolutely. So I will say two important points over here, Aditya. One is one important piece of information that we actually should be discussing over here in terms of Sanatana Dharma and how the heritage actually survived and why the history is like that and why these changes are now coming up. Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya, I personally feel that he has a lot to contribute to all this, what is happening. Why? Because Jagadguru Shankaracharya, the Sadasiv avatar of Bhagwan Shankar, actually worked for the establishment of the for the resurrection and the formalization of Sanatan Dharma, the Vedic Dharma, the Dvaitva and Advaitva, and creating the awareness, defeating the scriptures of the Buddhist monks, bringing back people into the fold of Sanatan Dharma, and creating these Shankaracharya mutts in four corners of India, and spreading the knowledge of Vedas, spreading the message of Vedas, and re-establishing Sanatan Dharma in such a way that people became so rooted that in spite of all the atrocities what the Delhi Sultanate did, the Mughals did, or even the Britishers did, our our culture did not die, our dharma did not die, our scriptures did not die. They were suppressed for certain years, let's say 100, 200, 300 years. I mean, primarily in the British era, I would say, and post independence by the Marxists, our scriptures have been, they have been suppressed, but now it is coming out. The reason and the only reason that I attribute to it is, the foundation which Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya had given us. and till today it is paying reaping we are reaping its benefits. So that's one point of it, one part of it. The second most single most important part of it is, as a historian, and just like me, I am a heritage specialist. I work for Intact Delhi chapter. It's important that you should have a balanced approach. You should, the balance, maintaining the balance is very necessary, so that people can really have an opportunity to look at both sides. But today what actually happened post independence, or right from ASI days of Cunningham, what we were talking of, was suppression, complete suppression, complete obscuring, complete sidelining, complete nepotism of Sanatan history. And when this kind of incidents take place, then sometime on later, the once it will take one spark, which actually happened this way. It will take one spark to ignite the fire or the flame to unearth everything, and that is exactly what is happening today. The likes of the likes of many historians are coming up. They're questioning everything. They're bringing into foray things which were already existent. Let me give you a classic example. Uh, when the Persians or the Arabic historians have written the texts like Tajul Masul, Tariq Firishta, or let's say, the Al-Biruni's account, Akbar Nama, or uh, the Minhas's document. I'm forgetting his name, the name of the book that he had written, Minhas. So all these historians, the beauty is, Sitaram Goel or Ram Gopal Mishra, they analyzes it very nicely and gives a comparative analysis of this, which is very important for everybody to know. That these Persian or Arabic historians, they were very smart to exaggerate things, to showcase their wins, but wherever they have lost or they have not been able to capitalize on the gains, they have kept either silent, or they have put it in a way where exchange of gifts have happened and the matter is stands resolved, or they have gone completely silent. But comparatively, if we look at the Sanskrit scriptures that are available to us, Kalhana's Raj Tarangini is the first of its kind, then followed by so many of them, Banabhatta's Harsha Charitra, or the Navsari inscription, the Aihole inscription, the Hathi Gumpha inscription, Ashoka's rocketics to some certain extent. These have been overlooked in the sense that these inscription gives, or the scriptures give, a detailed account where these Arabic or Persian historians have fallen silent or have exaggerated things. So the requirement was to bring these two pieces together and have a balanced approach. But what was actually done was to completely look at the Arabic or the Persian historians, and deliberately sidelining those history. A classic example I will give you is the Battle of Diver. The great Mughals, great Akbar. But why did you not tell me that there was a Battle of Diver, post Battle of Haldigati, where 36,000 Mughal soldiers, surrendered, and 18 Mughal checkposts were captured by Maharana Pratap. He completely overran, except Chittorgarh, he completely overran the Mughal forces everywhere. This biggest piece of history is very silently, kept under the wrap. They kept under the wrap what happened to Sambhaji. No mention of it. They mention, they do not talk about the Hindu Shahi dynasty, the brilliant and the ferocious leaders of Jaipal, Anand Pal, Nidar Bhim, Trilochan Pal. Nobody is discussed. Why? And people say that, oh, Muhammad Ghori came in and they captured everything and we started ruling. Muhammad Qasim plundered. But do you know, even after Muhammad Qasim plundered Sindh, he lost Sindh. He had to give up many territories because of the other rulers, Hindu rulers who were there, and Raja Dahir's son was one of them who fought back. And in that period, there is a period of 570 years where the Islamic forces or the army of Islam, what Tajul Masoor or Tariq Firishta or this Minhas, they speak of army of Islam, which clearly signifies that they were here to fight a holy war or a religious war. You know, they don't speak of this 570 years, and these are documented. There are inscriptions, there are scriptures available. So when you have suppression of to this level, the phoenix will rise. Sometime or the other, it has to rise. So this is exactly what is happening, and this will happen. This will continue to happen, and we will have a lot of other things coming up in the coming years. And as an heritage, specialist, I can tell you that lot of things there are on cards. And the one good thing that I can see, the government of India, the current government of India, is working aggressively to put quite a few heritage sites in India on the world's list of UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that's a very good thing. That's a separate topic. We can talk someday later. I can give you the entire list of all that stuff. But that's a very brilliant thing which is happening actually in the background. Things are changing. Things have started changing, but there's still a long way to go.
No, Indian government is the only government in the world which protects the natives. Everyone
Yeah,
else just talks. Like if you look at the
yeah,
Brazil, they have a native ministry actually, but
yeah.
they just trying to Portuguese everything. And Mexicans are the eternal slaves, and many Mexicans won't like it who are listening to this show right now. They are the Spanish slaves, the new Spaniards. They claim to be they have 3,600 languages in Mexico, but
Oops.
only one is recognized. So
My God.
their president, the latest who is running the show, and Obrigado, he's the one who is actually pushing for native rights because he's a native. So there is a Mexican population has a huge native outlook, but and they regularly classify Spaniards as gringos. Generally, people say
Okay.
it's Americans, but generally it's Spaniards. White Spaniards called gringos, and now they call Americans as gringos. Generally, white Americans as gringos. And
Okay.
but there is a movement over there going on, but still their only culture is Spanish culture. And like Mexico will be very proud to say they're Spaniards, and which is a very wrong way of self-identifying. Gradually, it's moving on. Peru, Colombia, all these
Yes.
countries are also trying to rediscover themselves and finding out they are not Spanish speaking people. They have much more languages. Like just the
Yeah.
Peru, small country Peru, has around 1,200 native languages, 1,200, and dialects, just like India, but the languages are completely different. Native Americans in USA have close to 6,000 languages. 6,000 languages. And
Never
uh,
knew all these details,
yes,
honestly. I'm
6,000
amazed.
languages there.
I'm
And
amazed.
6,000 languages and 6,000 worshipping methodologies, non-Christian methodologies. Not a single one is being taught in the American schools. I mean, no European American, I call it. There are Indian Americans, there are European Americans. Everybody has some epithet to that. And majority of 72%, and it's reducing now to 55%, are European Americans. And what they have done is that through the education system, they have spread the European religions and European culture. So even a Filipino American thinks he's a European. And Indian
Wow.
Americans also, Indian American kids also think they're Europeans. And
Wow.
so that's what they have done, and trying to homogenize the population, homogenize everyone looks the same, speaks the same, thinks the same. And so, sometimes I also joke is the USA is the biggest experiment which has happened. It's a corporation versus a country. So, last point, and then, so I really commend Indian government for successive Indian governments have done something, but a lot more needs to be done. That's clear from a
Yes.
discussion also. Now, one of the things which also comes to the mind is homogenization of cultures. Like, for example, creating a hybrid culture, like the one of the Congress presidents of the last, which is the Congress party. I'm saying, not the U.S. Congress party in India. They came out with the word Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb, which is homogenization again, using the word Ganga and Yamuna rivers, and then Tehzeeb is an Arabic one. So, do you think this homogenization can ever work? Because the cultures are so different. I mean, Vedic culture can never meet the Brahmic culture. They're totally different. There is no commonality at all, other than charity or dan. There's nothing else.
No, I personally don't think it can meet, as you rightly said, the very epitome, the very basis or the foundation of our Sanatan culture is completely different. It is linked to nature worship, and as as we were discussing a couple of minutes back, the Advaita, the formless, the non-believer, the believer, the devout, everybody is included. Everybody has a space in it. Everybody has been given the liberty to practice, to worship, to practice, to meditate in his or her own way. You know, there is freedom, ample freedom to follow your own path. There is ample freedom to choose your faith, where you want to go to a temple, you don't want to go to a temple, you want to worship at home, you don't want to worship in the nature, you want to worship a tree or a river, you want to take bath in a holy river. Everything is given there. And everything, the beauty is everything has a science in it, there's a logic in it, there's a reason behind it. But if you look at the other side, it is like, it's like a fixed stuff which we will have to operate within that fixed limits. And these are fundamentally so different that if you want to put them together, it will never work actually. And it's just not me who is saying this. I think Rishi Aurobindo has said that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that, Veer Savarkar has said that, and in the recent times, to some extent, I would say Raj Bihari Bose also said that. And uh, and the best example I think is in the recent time is Swami Vivekananda and Rishi Aurobindo. These two people, the way they have written that, the way they have defined these things, that why it can't coexist to some extent, to a great extent, is the reasons they have clearly mentioned. And that that's the differentiator, I would say, the differentiator. So if one wants to understand in greater depth, then I would suggest that they should read Rishi Aurobindo's writings, they should read Swami Vivekananda's writing, where they give a very clear demarcation of things. Very clearly they define what is Sanatana Dharma, how it should be practiced, and the levels where you are, depending on your faith, on your belief, on your spiritual development. There is a clear demarcation of facts. So it is important that people read these people, to understand.
No, that's a very good point. And also there is a very clear distinction between sampradayas, Sri Sampradaya, Ram
Yes, yes, yes,
Madhvacharya
absolutely,
Sampradaya, and
absolutely.
and they sharply contrast with the Bengal-based
Yes,
gurus, Vivekanand
yes, yes, yes,
and
yes,
Aurobindo, and also Prabhupada.
yes.
Also, Prabhupada also did a good
Yeah,
work.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
very
But amidst
distinguished.
all this, very distinguished, very distinguished. You even within Vaishnav, practices, you have the Pushti Margis, the Madhav Margis. You have the Gauriya Vaishnavism or the Vaishnav Tattva, I would say, and they are largely different in their ways. But if I really look at all of them from a 40,000 feet, somewhere they have a melting point. Common melting point.
Yeah, they all refer to
And
Veda. Veda, they're connected together in the Veda. So
so
it's a good thing.
they all speak of Purushottam, all speak of the Brahman, and the ways might be different, the paths might be different, the practices might be different, but the ultimate aim is to reach that Brahman state,
Yeah,
or you reunite with the Purushottam.
yeah, and also the goals are the same, and also the philosophy is largely the same. Uh,
Yes,
Practices may slightly
slightly
differ,
different from
slightly.
here to this, slightly different.
Like the
Otherwise, there is a
Nam Japa is common across all.
exactly,
is a common across all. So the slightly
Exactly.
different. So thank you so much, Surya, and thank you so much for all the viewers for watching. Do comment on the video and let us know your feedback. The best thing is you share widely and let us know what content will be next. And will be very interesting discussions like this will bring forth. So thank you so much, Surya, and thank you for all the viewers for watching. Namaskar.
Thank you.